I simply like to smoke pot. It makes me happy. That's all there is to it. I believe that the responsible adult use of marijuana as a recreational drug is a civil liberty. You know, that's just my theme, right there. When I travel, I look back at our country and I see a land of lies. I just see a land of lies. I see a land of sorry people, abused by the media, frightened into accepting lies. A dumbed-down America, celebrating anti-intellectualism these days, embracing lies. And for me, the, quote, evil of marijuana is one lie too many.
Friday opened with an inspired speech from travel guide Rick Steves, detailing his view of American marijuana prohibition from a uniquely European perspective. He spoke passionately on the use of cannabis as a civil liberty and the benefits of a public health approach to drug laws.
I find that this is our communication challenge, to overcome the fear. Overcome the fear. And when I travel outside the United States, I realize for most people on this planet, a joint is about as exciting as a can of beer. And that's the way it should be.
Following Rick was Richard Evans, retired NORML board member, who shared information on the analogous relationship between alcohol prohibition and the current marijuana laws. He highlighted just how much there is we can learn from the dry decade and how it can help guide our current reform agenda. For the next panel, Neil Franklin of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, Dr. Harry Levine, and Jasmine Tyler of DPA were joined by Alice Huffman of the California NAACP on a panel titled The New Jim Crow, Marijuana Prohibition. The panelists spoke to the sad state of current laws and how they are used to marginalize minority groups under the guise of public safety.
And in this, I didn't know we were going to have such a support group, and I didn't know there was going to be so much anger out there about the NAACP doing what it is supposed to do. Take government on when it is discriminating.
Alice spoke to the audience from a unique position as a civil rights activist and an African-American woman, detailing how the disparities in enforcement of marijuana laws affect her community.
So I want you to deal for a moment with this Jim Crow. This word Jim Crow. Because now it's coming back in vogue. It's been gone for a long time. And all of a sudden it's back on the table in dialogue. Remember what Jim Crowism was. It was a government-sanctioned program to make sure that a targeted group of people who happened to have been African American at the time lived second class in everything: school, lifestyle, no drinking at the water fountains, everything. It was a holistic life approach to second-class citizenship in America. So when you start throwing that Jim Crow around, you better analyze how it really applies here so that you can answer the question, because I think I'm here today to ask for all of you pleasure-loving, pot-smoking people to also pick up this campaign we're on to regulate and decriminalize it to save our young boys and girls who are losing their lives every day because they have a joint. But you know the problem I'm finding? In my community, we really did think the war on drugs was to protect us. We really are afraid of the gangs. We really are afraid of the bad guys. And somehow we got duped into thinking that the cartels and all those large drug dealers were going to be snapped up and swallowed up in this drug war to save our communities. And so we're so fearful. And now we live with the violence that comes from the illicit drugs, from it being sold underground. We live in fear in our own community. So it's hard to really talk about the leisure and the pleasure of pot in my community, because there's this fear that it is the gateway, They think it is the gateway to crack. They think it's the gateway to heroin. They think it's the gateway to methamphetamine. And they haven't really looked at what the gateway is. It's the gateway to the prison system. It is not the gateway to use. If you got an addictive personality, you're going to be, if you got an addictive personality, you're going to go in your mama's medicine cabinet and get you some drugs. And those are called legal drugs.
The NORML Women's Alliance made its conference debut with their panel, Women, Cannabis, and Respect. Panelists included Madeline Martinez of Oregon NORML, Marsha Rosenbaum, PhD, and Greta Gaines, musician, extreme sports athlete, and mother. Marsha spoke to the audience of her trials and tribulations as she navigated her Parent-Teacher Association and worked to implement rational drug education in schools.
I have been dealing with mostly trying to refute useless, counterproductive, DARE-style drug education in schools. I thought of my role as helping parents of teenagers, more the parents than the teenagers, deal with the drug issue. And as Rick Steves said, I think I'm quoting him right, what I thought I was doing was enlightening parents through respect and respectability. That's what I was doing.
What Marsha discovered in the PTA was the importance of mothers and grandmothers in the marijuana issue.
Now, what actually got me in were two women who were grandmothers. Why? I learned this very quickly. The mothers in the PTA who still had teenage children or younger were so fearful about the whole drug subject that they were keeping me at arm's length. The two grandmothers, who Drug Policy Alliance later gave them an award in drug education, had been through teenage. They now had grandkids. They got the issue, and they made sure that the PTA let me in with my materials and my talks and such. Teenagers dismiss drug education, DARE-style drug education, because the messages they heard about cannabis primarily, they knew to be, I would say, misinformation, but it was bullshit is what it was. I would never have said those words in front of the PTA, by the way.
Following Marsha was Greta Gaines. Greta shared her personal experience as a woman in the public eye and as a mother of two, coming out of the marijuana closet to embrace the issue as a consumer and an activist.
I would say that there is no more important piece of the population in America that we need to access, that we need to motivate, than the American mother. And I would also say the American grandmother. My mother has less to risk as a grandmother than I do as a young mother. She's 70. She wants to wear her mom smokes pot t-shirt and walk around, who's going to say something to my mother? So I've got her wearing the shirts. Many of our sisters who come from, Colorado and Oregon and California, they're in a different place in the conversation as moms and grandmothers in terms of their communities. If something is decriminalized or it's out in the open, like we can smoke pot in the Governor Hotel, I keep looking around every corner like, I'm going to get busted. Someone's going to show up and drag me off, take my kids away. My husband's going to leave me. But that's risk. That's what we're feeling is risk. And until we make it feel safe for women and for mothers in this movement, we are not going to come out of the pantry in this conspiracy to keep us in the kitchen and to keep us underground because we're too afraid to say, what do I have to gain?
After the panel, the women of the marijuana movement gathered together for photographs. Never has the need for women in the movement been so necessary, and the Women's Alliance served as the perfect unifier to bring them all together. The final panel of the day was on California's Proposition 19. NORML's own Paul Armentano was joined by Michael Whitney of Firedog Lake, Matt Welch of Reason Magazine, and Ephraim Nadelman from DPA to discuss the current impact and implications Prop 19 has for marijuana policy. As the informational aspect of the day came to a close, conference attendees were invited to the rooftop of Portland's Red Lion Hotel for a fundraising benefit. Guests relaxed to the panoramic views of the Pacific Northwest while listening to musical acts Chief Greenbud and Los Marijuanos. Conference keynote speaker, Governor Gary Johnson, delivered a candid address to partygoers, highlighting his rational take on drug policy.
I have drank alcohol. I don't smoke marijuana, but I've smoked marijuana, all right? And based on my experience, there is a big difference between marijuana and alcohol. And that big difference is that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. And I want you to know that I'm telling people this.
As the party began to wind down, so did day 2 of this year's NORML Conference. This has been NORML TV. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for continuing coverage.